My name is Sherri Okau, and I am one of the assistant directors in the Office of Housing and Residence Life that oversees the housing assignments and the housing selection process for on-campus housing. I also have here with me Rowena, Bangsil, who is also going to be talking a little bit about the off-campus housing option that we now have. And we'll be also walking you through what residential life is like for your students that live on campus if they are currently living there. As I mentioned, as an overview, we're going to talk about the residence life student experience and what your students are going through right now if they're currently living on campus and what they can anticipate if they're not currently living on campus. We're also going to walk through the on-campus housing selection process. We're going to talk about the overview of the process and what your students should anticipate. And we're going to touch on some of the dates that are going to be pertinent to your students as they go through this process. And as I mentioned, Rowena is also going to touch on some off-campus housing referrals. We're going to speak to you about new student services for students, web resources that we now have, as well as some educational sessions for your students to get better acquainted with information regarding off-campus housing and how to go about that, those steps to obtain that living preference. The Office of Housing and Residence Life, or in Residence Life, is a 24/7, 365 operation. We do have on-call staff that comprise of a professional staff person, a student leader, which is a resident advisor, and we work very closely with our public safety office. We do have somebody on call 24/7, 365, and we truly mean that. Not only do we have our center office operation during the business days, but after hours and on the weekends, including our holidays, we do have somebody that is on call to tend to the situations that may come up after hours. Our professional staff also, part of our staff, which are resident directors, live in each residential community, and they oversee the residents of that building and also supervise the resident advisors that live within each community that are responsible for each floor within that building area. 8 to 10 resident advisors are housed also in the building, as I mentioned, alongside with one of the RDs that oversee that building area. And these are excellent students leaders. Right now, our RAs are going through, our candidates are going through RA selection. And we are going to be selecting our new staff for the new academic year. And we've been very blessed to have excellent student leaders, which is a very competitive process, but we've been pretty much fortunate to have the cream of the crop, if you will. The resident advisor position is an opportunity for our students to have a leadership opportunity in the residential life area. And they are also students that we ask to come in 2 weeks before the academic year kicks off. And we go through a 2-week extensive training with them so that we can better prepare them for their roles to better serve the students that are living within their community areas. Along with that, some of the responsibilities that our resident advisors have, they offer hundreds of programs and activities so that your students are involved, and they're making that transition of life skills and just living on campus and some of the things that we've hoped to encourage them to learn to better prepare them once they leave college life. We also have first-year hall councils, which are hall councils within each residential community. And these are students that are leaders within their communities as well, along with the resident advisors, who offer suggestions and listen to the needs and the concerns that residents in the buildings have. And at times there are programs that are going to be built around these needs and concerns of areas that they want to see change, or just basically a voice for your residents that live on campus. So that's also a neat feature that we have. In addition, we do have student leaders that work in the central office alongside with professional staff. These student leaders are also well informed about what's going on in the residence life area, in addition to on-campus housing as well as off-campus housing now, to answer the questions and concerns for students and parents that may be in contact with our office. And speaking on some on-campus housing for current students, how many of the parents in this room have residents live on campus right now? Whoa, that's a lot. that's really impressive as well for us. And I'm really excited to see many hands going up in the audience here. Well, right now, if your students haven't mentioned to you already, they're going through what we call the Panther housing selection process. The Panther housing selection process is primarily for current students only. And these are students that, whether they're currently living on campus or not, they are eligible to apply to participate in this Panther housing selection process. This is a process set up for students, current students, to select where they want to live and who they want to live with. Unlike when they first came in to the university, we assigned them based on their freshman foundation course. In this round, now that they're currently enrolled here, they get to pick where they want to live and who they want to live with. And all of this takes place through the Chapman Housing Portal. And we're going to walk through the steps of what your students should anticipate. And by going through these 3 steps, which is submitting and completing the online application to be eligible to participate in the process. 2, they will receive a PHS time slot, which will allow them to know what time they can log onto the portal to select their assignment that they're eligible for. And 3, when they log onto that portal, they're going to see what is available to them based on their eligibility, and they're going to select their housing assignment, and then that's also when they sign the lease agreement agreeing to live on campus for the entire new 2012-2013 academic year. The students with priority are primarily students that are current freshmen or future sophomores, also known as a student that is in their first year. I understand that there are a lot of first-year students that are not necessarily a true freshman or true, and a lot of them tend to be a sophomore already. So we're looking at students that have their first year at Chapman have priority in this process. Any student that is going to be a future junior or senior that is not their first year is not going to be given in the process, priority in the process until all of our current first-year students go through. The reason is that we feel that based on the number of students that currently live on campus, and when we look at the priority, what is important to us is who's going to be ready to live off campus. And certainly our first year students are not quite there yet, and whereas our future juniors and seniors are probably going to be able to be better apt to do that. And now that we have Rowena Bangsil as our off-campus coordinator, that's the area of support that we now have for our future juniors and seniors. With that said, the areas that they're going to be selecting from, which are also known as our continuing student communities, is Sanju Residence Center, Glass Hall, parts of Glass Hall, not all of it, Southmoreland, Davis, and Harris Apartments. And we're also going to look at the priority within the first-year students of out of area, in area, and then anything that is available that is a future junior or senior will be given priority based on what spaces are available, and will be able to go through the process after all first years go through. And we also do have special housing accommodation process for students. Some of you in this room have students that currently have special housing accommodations as we currently. So any student that has a housing accommodation that is already on file with us, we will go ahead and work with them individually and work with them on placing them in their new housing assignment for next year. Special accommodation process is not, it's very particular, and this is a process that is designed for students that have physical limitations or anything that we need to be concerned of regarding their housing assignment. So for those of you that have students that have these accommodation needs, you know probably exactly what I'm speaking about. If you have more questions about that, I can certainly answer them. And while we're on that, does anyone have any questions specific to that topic? Yes. Okay. Do you have another question?
I do. Do you want us to hold them to the end?
Yeah, probably will be the best thing. Thank you. All right, I want to spend some time on this, and not saying that this building or community is better than any other non-theme community. But the reason why we want to bring this up here is that the living learning communities that exist here in our campus now in Sandu Residence Center is something that is fairly new to the residence life area or to the university. Does anyone know what a living learning community is? No? Oh, you do? Okay. Well, Living Learning Community is basically a community that has a special focus where programming and the interests and the passion of what the students are focusing on is what students will be dedicating a lot of their time to. Currently, for example, we have 6 Living Learning Communities that's all housed in the Sandu Residence Center. Those comprise of the Sustainability Greenhouse community, the expedition, outdoor experiences floor. We do have Global Village, business entrepreneurship, film and media arts, and arts initiative. Those are all of our LLCs that is housed within Sandu Residence Center. And students that have to apply to live in this community, and they go through a selection process. And so they're required to complete, in addition to their housing application for Panther housing selection, they have to complete also a supplemental application, and there are a couple of questions that we are asking them to respond to that are specific to that community. And based on their responses, they will be selected and be approved to select a room within that community area. And they can only apply for one living learning community at a time or during each selection period. If they are approved, they're going to be notified and of their eligibility on March 12th. And if they're not selected for the Living Learning Community, then they will go through the process based on non-theme areas or the Davis and Harris apartments. It is a pretty specific and a pretty prestigious process for them. It's really amazing to see how many students have very passionate commitments towards being a part of this community. And I think that our staff, the resident director, along with our residential program coordinator and the RAs that are assigned to those communities, do a really good job in providing opportunities, programs, and activities for the residents. And it's really neat to kind of see that commitment towards that. Unlike any other themed area, this is where you have more of students that are very passionate about where they live and kind of having that focus again. So that's what is very different. It is now the 3rd year that we're going to go through that and having these living learning communities, and they've been very successful. And a lot of students also are very interested in applying for the process, but unfortunately not all students are going to be approved to select a room in this area. And just to touch on the Panther housing selection process, the application deadline or the priority date is February 28th, and this is a firm deadline or priority date. Any student that does not submit an application on or before midnight on this date at 11:59 p.m. will not be eligible to participate in the Panther housing selection process. So if your students are interested in living on campus and they haven't done this application yet, strongly encourage them to go ahead and do that, especially if they are a current freshman or a first-year student that is interested in on-campus housing. They will apply through the Chapman housing portal just as it is as when they were a freshman if your student is currently living on campus. And they will do that by logging into the portal and completing the application. Again, if they're interested in the living learning community, they will fill out the supplemental application, which is part of the application process. Once all applications are submitted, we do look and see who's going to be participating in the process, and we do notify our students to let them know that they now can look for roommates that are preferred roommates or roommates that they want to, they find compatibility with, just like how they do in Facebook. It works the same way within our Chapman housing portal. If they're looking for someone that they want to roommate because they don't have a preferred roommate, they can do that. Or if they have a preferred roommate, they will be able to confirm each other through the portal as well, so that all that information can be ready before they go through that selection process. And I mentioned throughout the information that I shared with you, each student that is eligible to participate, will be given a time slot to let them know what time that they can log onto the portal to select their housing assignment. Each of the processes has a different date when we notify the students and when the actual selection process takes place. So it's important for your students to make sure that they're aware of the timeline that is provided to them, and they're being mindful of that. The time slots makes them eligible to participate anytime after that time slot period begins. So if I were to issue a student a 7 o'clock time slot, 7 in the evening, to participate in the process and select, they can either log on right at 7 or they can log on anytime after 7, but they're running the chance of less opportunities or selections or spaces available at that time. So just being mindful of the dates and making sure your student is familiar with the timeline is really crucial in this process. And then, as I said, they're going to return back to their portal. They're going to select their housing assignment, and they're going to electronically sign the ROLA. And depending on how the Panther housing selection process goes, some dates may change due to whatever may be coming up during the given time. But we do notify, obviously prior to the actual change itself or the process itself, so that they need to be good about checking their Chapman email, because all of our communication will go through their Chapman email in addition to marketing in different aspects, but primarily through the Chapman email. So encourage your students to make sure that they're checking that if they are participating in that process. And now we're going to transition to off-campus housing for our Chapman students. And again, as I mentioned to you, this is a new program, if you will, that we are now able to offer, and I'm really excited that we are able to offer this now. Rowena Bangsil, who is our new off-campus housing coordinator, it's a new position, hence the new program, and she has been really instrumental, especially to our students that are looking for off-campus housing. Unlike in the years past, we hadn't had that resource. We really just had information for off-campus housing, but she's been really able to enhance that for our students and been a true support to them. So I'm going to transition over, if I can, to Rowena to speak to you about on-campus housing.
I have to get over to the mic. I don't know if I really need it. For those that know me, I'm pretty loud. So if I get a little loud, forgive me. Hello, everyone. I know it's the mid-morning slump. It's probably afternoon already, so hang in there. I just want to touch on this just a little bit. I'm not going to take too much of your time because I know Q&A is really, really important. I have been so, I would say, rewarded by this new position because, let's face it, it is a scary time, right? For yourselves and for your students, but it's exciting. It's that next level. It's that next chapter. And I get to work with them during that next chapter. So with the support of our assistant director and our director, we're here to support them. A fantastic parent came up to me earlier and asked a really important question, and I want to clear it up while we're all here. And please spread the word to those friends that you have, other Chapman parents that you know that are not here. I want to clear up something. We're here as a resource. Off-campus housing, we don't own apartments off campus. The ones that we do own are technically on campus. The position that I have and what I do is help students. I'm basically a resource to helping them navigate off campus, real world, that next level, finding an apartment home, a private rental, townhome, giving them that education that they're going to take for the rest of their lives that we still probably do till this day, whether it be renting a house or buying a home. I can help them with that. So typically what I focus on are resources. And with that said, I have partnered and have many connections amongst the neighborhood, amongst the neighboring cities. My background is property management and real estate, and so I have been there, done that. I've managed many properties in this area. I've been a regional manager, a trainer, and now I get to work here with you folks. So it's a really exciting time. So based on that, we have developed some great initiatives with these apartment communities. Some will waive application fees. Some will provide lower deposits, such as a $99 deposit versus $1,000. I mean, you save some bucks there. And these are just purely because of the relationships that I've held throughout the years in the industry, which consists of 12 plus years. So I don't want to really age myself, but I used to be a makeup artist, so this is an illusion. So anyway, here we go. All right, so the other thing I do are workshops. To educate the students how to live off campus, to help them balance the stress in their lives, to help them learn how to, although sometimes I need the help, to help them learn how to financially be strong, you know, to be financially confident with their budgeting. So we will host workshops. We also have socials to help bridge that gap between off campus, even though it's literally a mile away, but we help bridge that gap, and I don't do that alone. We have a huge team in our Office of Housing and Residence Life division that helps with that, and I also have formed a council and a commuter club. So if your student says there's really nothing out there, you know, you might want to ask them, do you know about the commuter club? Do you know about the off-campus housing council? Because it's out there, and to stay involved is really the key to bridging that gap, and I promote that with the council, and I promote that with hosting socials at each apartment community. There's an apartment community about a mile away. There's about 35% of students that are the demographic, so it's kind of like another residence halls, but from afar, and I stress to the students as well, you know, we're trusting them, but they still have to abide by conduct, and we're going to trust them as citizens of this neighborhood and do us proud, and all of them do. We have fantastic students. So I actually want to give your students a round of applause for being really, really great students. I want to hear it. Okay. The last thing is that online, we have updated online the off-campus resource. There's a guide that they can download. There's 20 plus apartment communities that they can view. There's private rentals that I have that I have connected with privately owned owners, privately owned property with owners, and they have been gracious enough to rent to our students, open their homes and rooms to our students. So the community has been very, very welcoming in that. So I want to encourage you to go on to the Chapman website. When you do, the top right corner, and this is going to be our information here, but the top right corner of the website, just search off-campus housing, and it'll take you to the first link. Just click on it. It's going to say off-campus housing, and it'll take you straight to the page. You know, let's see if we can do that here. I want to just show you here quickly where that is, just so that you can get a quick overview. See, I told you I wasn't going to take too much of your time. Here I am. All right. So here we go. Okay. So this top right corner, just type in off-campus housing. And it is the first search result. And it's going to take you to the page. So I will also have off-campus housing info sessions for each of your students. When they're juniors and seniors, this is really vital. I highly recommend. I know most of you folks, your students are going to be future sophomores. But if your student is ready to live off campus, I would highly encourage them to attend one of these info sessions, and I'll basically cover step-by-step instructions, tips. It's going to hold a Q&A, so it'll be really informative. So basically, this is the first page here. It has the off-campus housing rental listings that hold the private rentals. We have an off-campus housing roommate corner page as well, Facebook page. And then we also have the top 5 apartment communities right here, and you can click on these links to take a virtual tour. And there's additional apartment communities down here as well. And it shows you exactly how many miles away from campus they are. Okay? All right. The next thing I really want to show you is living off campus. All right. Here's a guide. This is what I will encourage all of your students, and maybe yourself too, to download and start that conversation with them while it's early. I want to pull up the table of contents. It starts with the type of accommodations, educating them on what a private rental is, an apartment community, a townhome, so forth, so on. All the way to credit, all the way to safety, fire safety, schools, transportation, being a good roommate, being a good neighbor, all of that good stuff. So anyway, that's just a little sneak preview of the guide. The other thing I want to mention is commuter info. Here is a bunch of information with regards to transportation and parking that your students and yourselves can read about. So at your own leisure, please feel free to really go into this and peruse it at your own time. I highly recommend it, especially when your student will be a junior and senior, because at that point they're probably going to be ready, and I get to work with them. So with that said, I'm going to pull up our contact information again, and I will be done, and we're going to open it to Q&A unless Sherri has anything else to say. All right, Q&A time. Here we go. This is the fun part. Yes, sir.
The question was, if you have a student that is studying abroad in the fall, what should we advise our student to do? Should they apply for Panther housing selection if they don't know if they're studying abroad yet, or if they are, what will happen if they're tied into the lease agreement? Students that are interested in applying for the process, this application just makes them eligible to participate. So they can go through, we can go through the whole timeline, and if they're not wanting to select an assignment, then that's fine. The application just allows them to be eligible to participate, so I want to make that first clear. Secondly, if they go through the process, primarily students that are studying abroad in the fall semester are not normally students that are going through this process, because this is housing that's going to begin starting in the fall semester. However, if a student makes a last-minute decision or is accepted later than most students are, then what they will go ahead and do, if they choose to participate in the process, they secure a housing assignment, we have a license release request process that they just need to notify the Office of Housing and Residence Life. We'll give them the form and explain what they need to do to submit their request. We'll review it. We'll run it by our Global Education Office to verify that he or she is going abroad. And if it's a non-affiliated Chapman program that they're going on, then we ask for a letter of acceptance that they're going on that study abroad program, and then they will be released from the lease agreement that they signed initially at the housing selection process. So again, I just want to stress that the application itself that's due on the 28th makes them eligible. I have a lot of students that are going through RA selection right now, and that's also a very similar and common question that they ask. Should I go ahead and apply if in the off chance that I do get selected to be an RA next year? We also encourage them, it's better to be safe than sorry. If you want to make sure that you want to secure something on campus, it's better to submit an application because you still have some time to figure those other pieces out. And until we submit the time slot email, even after that, once you submit the time slot email, that makes you eligible to select on that given date. But if that person doesn't log onto the portal and doesn't select a room, there's no obligations there. The only thing that they will not get refunded for is the $50 application fee, because that is required in order for us to process that application. The question was, what are the chances, correct me if I'm wrong, what are the chances of our first year students being guaranteed or placed in an on-campus housing? And we can't guarantee that a student will secure that spot. It is our hope that we will be able to place all of our current freshmen. I can't quite honestly be confident in saying that we're going to be able to place a lot of, if any, of our future juniors and seniors, but our current freshman or first year students is who is going to be given priority of all the spaces. So we're going to hope that we're going to get a pretty significant amount of our students that have applied for the process. So that's what the hope is. Thank you. The question is, how many students can share the apartment? The only apartments that we have on campus is in Davis, Harris, Glass Hall Apartment Suites, and that's it. Sandy Residence Center has what we call Residence Hall Suites. If it is a 2-bedroom Davis apartment, then the minimum occupancy is 3. If it is a 2-bedroom Glass Hall Apartment Suite, the minimum occupancy there is 4. If it is a 1-bedroom Davis apartment, Glass Hall apartment, or a Harris apartment, minimum occupancy is 2. Some of the Davis apartments that we have that are 1-bedroom will have some triples there. There will be about 16 triples that students will be able to select from, which have gone over really well for us in this current year. So we're going to try to maximize as much as we can, but as far as for maximizing every single room, that's probably not going to be something that we will be able to look into, but we're trying to look at that to maximize as much as we're able to given the number of students going through the process. Thank you. And the hand back there. The process is actually going to be the whole month of, It's a month-long process, and because of spring break, we have to kind of split the process in half. So there are some processes that will be happening as early as mid-March, and then we go through those dates based on the timeline, as I mentioned, and then we leave for spring break, or the students do, and then when we come back from spring break, we pick back up again to finish off the rest of the process. So it starts by mid-March, and then it ends on actually like April 20th, I think. That's kind of like the period of time that they're going through that process. Yes. The dates that I referred to, he wants to know to go over some of the dates that we talked about in our presentation. February 28th is a date that they need to submit their Panther housing selection application to be eligible to participate in the process. The other dates that I mentioned is really when the time slot emails are going to go out. There are not actually the dates of selection. The time slot email will refer to the date that they're going to be selecting and the time they're going to select. So, and that process is going to take place between mid-March through April 20th, with the exception of spring break in between that.
And that is to select a particular...
Well, the question was, what's the time frame as to when to start looking for off-campus housing? You know, I'm really glad you asked that, sir, because it's never too early to start searching for the areas or an apartment community that you and your student feel comfortable with. But it is too early to solidify an actual space, because let's face it, you know, in California, you're only obligated to give a 30-day notice. So landlords can only see 30 days out. So I am recommending students to pick their top 3 apartment communities or top 3 areas that they feel most comfortable with, you and them. So that way I really encourage you to have that discussion with them, and come, if they're moving in August and school starts end of August, start 30 days prior, or even 60 days prior. Now, if there are private landlords that you know, or your student knows that those students are moving out, I recommend the students to ask that landlord, listen, I know that your current tenants are moving out. Is there a way we can put a holding deposit? That way you don't have to wait and you don't have to market your place. I'm willing to take this spot. It's okay to ask that to private landlords. Now, apartment communities is really different. It's business, so there's not a lot of negotiating there. They have a leasing office, and people give a 30-day notice, so they can see 30 days out. Now, if your student wants to move in during the summer, then right away in April, May, I would start. So just keep that 30-day window in mind with regards to in connection to the move-in date. Yes, ma'am. The question was, are most of the apartment communities 12-month leases? No. Apartment communities, they have what's called a lease expiration matrix. And what that is, depending on if apartment community is 100 units, 200, 300, the larger the community is and the more, I guess I should say, the more reputable the company is, meaning if it is a large publicly owned company like Camden, or if it's a privately owned company that's huge like the Irvine Company, they have a lease expiration matrix. And what that is, it helps the employees on site know if they can accept a 30-day notice in a particular month. And that helps them control their vacancy. Meaning if somebody wants to move out in 9 months, or if somebody moves out in September and this apartment community already has 50 people moving out in September, and May, June, July, August, September, and your student goes in there in May and they say, I only want a 5-month lease. Well, that means that lease is going to expire in September. They're going to say, no, because the max that we have is already 50 and I'm already over. So it is negotiable to a certain point. Most apartment communities only do 6, 9, and 12-month leases. Now with private landlords, that is negotiable because it's their private property. They don't have company standards to abide by. They can do month to month, they can do 3 months, but it's a business too. And for those of you folks that own property, you don't want your property sitting vacant because you're losing vacancy loss. I mean, there's money being lost there. So, and that's why I always encourage the students, first and foremost, to exercise that conversation with the private landlords, to ask them. You're not going to know unless you ask. That is my main thing when I talk to the students. So hopefully that answers the question.
The question is, what is the chances of an out-of-area sophomore and an in-area sophomore being roommates? At this time, my understanding is that we are going to allow students, as long as they're current freshmen, if we have a in-area future junior that's a current upperclassman, then that's not going to gel very well. But a student that has the same eligibility as a current freshman or first year, at this time, unless it's determined later that that is not the case, and we will communicate that to your student. But as of right now, they will have the same eligibility and participation in the process.
Okay, so for students that are planning on studying abroad and they're off campus, if it's a private landlord, ma'am, is that what the question was? Okay, how do you deal with that? I would have that conversation with that private landlord. Because it is privately owned, there's more negotiable standards there. Now that entails having, I think it's a 6-month lease or something like that. And have your student be ready. So if that landlord says, you know what, I am okay with that, but as long as they can replace their spot, have that conversation with that landlord. It is really important that you do that, and they're going to have a vested interest to have that conversation right back at you because they don't want their space vacant. Yeah. So hopefully that answers that question, ma'am. Does it? Okay, good. And then for on campus, the same question.
Sorry. This in the fall semester, we are invited to the parent or the orientation, study abroad orientation, and one of the things that we speak to is to students that are living on campus currently as of the fall semester. Basically, these students are going to be the selected number of students that will be going through the license release request process because they're not going to be physically here, so we can't hold them responsible for financially responsible for the lease agreement because they're going to be financially responsible for their study abroad program. So, yes. Yes. So in the fall, we go to the orientation to speak to students who are leaving for study abroad in the spring, to go through the license release request process and giving them information of what they need to do, steps they need to take before they depart on their study abroad experience in the spring.
So what kind of lease would they sign?
It would still be... yeah, they're going to get out of their lease. So if they sign a 12-month lease, which is the summer, fall, and spring of the current and next year, then they will go to the license release request process. If they sign a 9-month for the 9 months of the academic year, same thing. So we'll speak to that back there.
All right, I'm going to make this quick because, as I said before, we can go on and on and on and on and on. But the question is, how do you set up a lease agreement for multiple occupants? Is that what it is, sir? Well, typically for private landlords, they will only require one co-signer, which is one of you folks, parents, right? That has the mucho bucks. And your students will be occupants. That's it. Easy enough, right? That was a quick and easy answer. So we're going to wrap it up because we are being triggered here. So thank you, folks, and we'll be up here for other questions.